I knew that I had a calling to do community-based work. And thinking about my next steps, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go straight into grad school right away. And so I felt compelled to do a gap year. I think about gap year opportunities, there's so many different things that could go my way, but I stumbled upon AmeriCorps and I actually met a campus recruiter. Shout out to Dawn.
Here we go, folks, back again with another AmeriCorps Connections podcast for the 2024 Recruitment Extravaganza. And we are here with Jeunet Fidelino from the Go Foundation. And if you can't see, if you lean back just a little bit, you can see where her service was. City Year. Maybe we'll get the cheer at the end, just like Addie did. But thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you who are new to this podcast, my name's Nicki Fiocco, and I'm an AmeriCorps alum. AmeriCorps is a national program where folks serve. It's similar to the Peace Corps, but they serve in the domestic United States across the country in areas of education and environment and healthy futures and veteran services and a whole array of opportunities. And they can serve anywhere between 300 hours all the way up to 1 year, which is about 1,700 hours. And what we're doing is addressing our country's most critical issues and supporting folks along the way to get into their next journeys. And the program's set up to support communities, but it's also set up to support the individual who is participating in that program. And again, like I said, I'm an AmeriCorps alum. I served in Volunteer Maryland, and it 100% changed the trajectory of where I went from after my service year to where I am now. I built skills, I built relationships, I built confidence. So really the purpose of this podcast is to bring those AmeriCorps alums who have gone through a service year, and now they're at a particular point in their career where maybe they're offering opportunities to folks to serve in an AmeriCorps position or other opportunities. So this is a special recruitment series. So it's my goal to highlight up to about 15 programs who are recruiting for AmeriCorps who are recruiting for AmeriCorps members to serve in the upcoming 2024-25 service year. The requirement is you got to be an AmeriCorps alum looking for AmeriCorps members, and Jeunet is one of those. So we're super excited about that. And I'm just going to give a shout out, of course, to Dan Medevere of Time or Money Services. He is the first one that stepped up. He's an NCCC alum, and he said, your podcast is cool. I think that was only like 5 episodes in, and he got me on all the platforms. So if you are listening on Apple Tunes or Spotify, thank Dan for making that possible. And then super excited in 2024, new partnership developed with Do Good, Be Good and Sharon Tewksbury Bloom and her entire team of AmeriCorps alums who support me on the back end of some of the editing and some of the extra stuff that takes longer than having these wonderful conversations. So thank you so much. And if you haven't yet, you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching this or listening to this on your podcast, download and share and comment and do all the things that make this podcast pop up in your algorithms. Okay, without further ado, we are here to listen to you. So, Jeunet, tell me about your national service experience, the program you went into. How did you find the opportunity? Let's start there. How did you find the opportunity, and where was it, and all that good stuff?
Thank you again for having me. Super excited to share my story and just be part of this podcast. And within this AmeriCorps family, I always share that it's family grounded and glad to be part of something bigger than myself. And I think that really is catered to the beginnings of what I wanted to do. I was in the midst of college. I started off as an education major, and then I also really found my way in what that looked like in serving and teaching, right? But I had 2 different placements during my school, right? I had one in underserved community, and then one that had highly resourced. It was affiliated with a bank, right? And so I got to see firsthand the differences in the education system, and made me question, why did one facility have the resources and why did one lack them? And really that allowed me to understand there was a disparity in the education system. And it allowed me to understand, like, oh, I think I could do something greater than just being in the classroom spaces. And when I transitioned, I started off community college and then transitioned into University of Delaware for my undergrad degree. I changed my major to human services just because I knew that I had a calling to do community-based work. And thinking about my next steps, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go straight into grad school right away. And so I felt compelled to do a gap year. I think gap year opportunities, there's so many different things that could go my way, but I stumbled upon AmeriCorps and I actually met a campus recruiter, shout out to Dawn, where Dawn taught me about City Year, and it aligned with everything I wanted, right? It was education based, but it also opened up the lines of bridging the gap towards education equity, which was something I really longed to be part of, right? And I decided to be part of City Year right after I finished graduating. I did take a leap of faith and chose a city across the country. So I served in City Year Los Angeles, which was a super exciting opportunity for me to start new, get outside my comfort zone, but do something that I was really passionate about.
Yeah. What a great opportunity. I love that you found out about it through kind of happenstance through your college experience. And then it was like, I think something that's really cool is AmeriCorps gives you an opportunity to figure out where your sweet spot is. And so you're like, I could teach, but
Yeah.
then there's those kind of barriers. But I really want to make an impact in students' lives. And then City Year comes along and it gives you the exact framework of, yeah, you're going to be in a school and you're going to help students, but you're not going to run a classroom, which is a whole other. I haven't had a lot of Teach for America alums on here. I think I've had one or two. So I need to get them on and say, so what's that like?
Yeah.
But that's so cool to hear that like City Year was the perfect opportunity for you. And you traveled cross country. And I mentioned this on another podcast for folks that are just tuning in, but not always, but sometimes you can move from wherever you are. Sometimes the programs are able to pay for it. Most of the time they're not, but it does give you an opportunity to move cross country, move somewhere new and experience the community and actually engulf yourself with that community. It's not like you're an outsider, because as soon as you're an AmeriCorps member, you become an insider, like immediately. What was that experience of coming? So you were in New Jersey, or where were you coming? Delaware. So what was that experience so I'm from California and I live on the East Coast now. So I'm just curious, what was your experience when you moved out to LA and you were like, all right then?
Yeah, I was just like coming into doing something new. I was outside of college and I was super stoked to just embed in a new environment, embed in like a new community as well too. But for me, it was definitely culture shock because East Coast, West Coast, some of the culture, the weather, I very much appreciated the weather in Los Angeles too, but I didn't realize how much I'd be homesick, right? Like I didn't have the convenience of my family around anymore, but it allowed me to, again, be outside my comfort zone to do something and gravitate towards the different things I could do, right? Oh, as cliche as it was, like I loved taking the time on the weekends to go to Santa Monica, visit the Hollywood sign, do all those touristy things while I could, but also by living on a stipend as well and trying to
No kidding.
what that looked like as well. But I would say that I definitely don't regret my decision to do that as well too. I have a few friends that haven't been able to do that themselves, right? And so really putting in that perspective of doing this while I was younger and living out like something that I really wanted to do and putting that into and making that effort to do that is something I'm really proud of to do, right? And now I was able to live in LA for 5 years and definitely holds a really big part of my heart and try to visit every so often now that I'm back in the East Coast.
That's so beautiful. So you served, how long was your service year? Did you do 1 year or so you were there for 5 years? Were you with City Year the whole time?
No, so I did a year of my service and transparently it was one of the hardest years of my life, right? I understood the impact and how rewarding it was, but for me mentally, I really needed to take a break in order for me to love the organization again, right? And so
Sure.
after my year of service, I was being tapped if I wanted to be a team leader, and I was like, okay, I think I need a break for now, but it was never a closed door in coming back to City Year, right? And so after my year of service, I took some time. I taught a little bit in the Los Angeles area, and then there was an opening where it allowed me to come back to City Year as part of the recruitment team. And I was a bit nervous just because for me, I've never had the opportunity to be in recruitment, talent acquisition. That was such a unfamiliar territory for me. But even after I left City Year, there's one thing that I kept doing was I kept talking about City Year. I kept talking
Yeah.
about
Yep.
opportunity. I kept talking about my experience, my students that I served, and just being able to share that. And what I realized is, especially when it comes to recruitment, it's all about storytelling when it and
Hmm.
part of that organization like City Year, right? And so for me, I am very thankful for my recruitment team that believed in me to be able to take my story and allow that to elevate people's experience and potentially being part of City Year as well too. After my year of service, I took a little break and then was part of the recruitment team in LA for about 3 years.
That's so cool. One of my favorite opportunity was to recruit AmeriCorps members. Like,
Yeah.
because I would be like their biggest fan, right? I'm like, and we were an intermediary, so we would place AmeriCorps members in different nonprofits or government agencies or
Oh,
schools.
nice. Yeah.
And sometimes I would have a member and they would go to 3 different interviews and all of the organizations would say, no, they're not a good fit. And I'm like, yes, they are. And so I would just be like,
Right.
we are going to find a place for you. And we would place them and I would be there for them and just be like, we're going to get you through your service year. And you have no idea how this is going to change you on the other side.
Yeah.
And they always would come out. And it was one of my favorite things was to just support AmeriCorps members through their service year. And I love that you were so self-aware enough to say, I got to take a step back before
Yeah.
I serve. And I'm a big fan of national service, but I was a director of a program for 3.5 years, and I've seen the ups and downs of people's service experiences, and it can be really challenging. And the challenges can go from mental health and expenses to a crappy site that just doesn't have the resources or the folks that can support a member. And you can go also like my experience that was just phenomenal, right? It started off like, meh, and then it really led into a lot of really great things. And I think that's something that when we think about national service, we want to keep all those colors there because it's not unicorns and rainbows all the time. It just isn't. Sometimes it's just mucking and gutting houses when you're just like, this is
So,
not the fun thing.
right.
So like kudos to you to be able to step back and then lean in and
Yeah.
go back to City Year and be like, all right, then I know how impactful this program was, and I want more people to have this opportunity. So, what were just reflecting on your service year? What was
Yeah.
something that you really took away from your service year, and then maybe in your recruitment with City Year, and then we'll move into who you're working with now. What was like maybe not a rags to riches, but like I can pick off 5 stories of specific individuals that were like here, and then they were like, "Pcha!"
Yeah.
So first of all, during your City Year, what was something that really stuck out to you that really changed you intrinsically?
Yeah, within a year of service, that goes by in a click of an eye. And so for me, I don't think I understood the impact that I made or what City Year was creating for not just my life, but for my students' life until after I left, right? And so
Gotcha.
for me, I was working with 10th graders at the time, and now my 10th graders are first generation college students and college graduates.
Wow.
And I think that,
Wow.
yep, that is already in itself the reason why I come back day by day, because I was able to witness what national service, City Year, AmeriCorps was able to do for my students, right? And it's one of those things that I knew my students had it in them along throughout, right? But they just needed that extra push, that extra encouragement from a mentor to believe in them through that 1 year, and allowing that 1 year to really change the trajectory of their lives along with mine too, right? And so
That's
it allowed
cool.
me to know that I really wanted to come back into the space that was making an impact for the next generation of students to succeed despite their circumstances.
That's beautiful. I love that. So what is, when you were doing recruiting for City Year, or maybe one or two situations where you're like, oh, this was like so cool when this happened?
Yeah, I actually began recruiting in the middle of the pandemic. So it was such a
So there's
great,
that.
yeah, there's that one. Grateful to have had a job at that time of life, but it really allowed me to it made me push the limit and challenging myself to figure out how I can connect with college students, right?
Mm.
So kind of full circle moment, I became a campus recruiter, the same way I found out about City Year itself too. But for me, it was different because I was in person when I found out about City Year, right? And so I think something that I really tapped into is meeting people where they're at and meeting the students where they're at, right? So
Hmm.
as much as we can email people and find them through our website, I was trying my best to put my Gen Z shoes on, right? Figure out, okay, what in the Gen Z field, how can I meet students? And I was like, wait, social media. And if I
Yep.
can, if you can't read my emails, that's fine, but you can follow me in my stories and the things that we post on social media, right? And so I tapped into that and was able to work closely with the different colleges that were partnered with City Year and be like, hey, this is something kind of brand new, but I'm hoping that you'd be willing to try it out. And so I would go on Instagram Live, I would do Instagram takeovers, and
That's cool.
really own into sharing the experiences of City alumni, those that are currently serving through virtual platform too. And that raised up our percentages in applications and views and people recognizing our branding because we were able to meet them through another virtual platform like social media too. And within a school and partnership setting, they actually added it into their partnership. And so I was able to pave the way for them to recognize the impact that it had both on a recruitment cycle level, but on our end, and then also through an employer relation and on campuses as well too.
That's great for you. And we talked about before we started hitting record about meeting people where they are. That's the genesis of this podcast. Like people are
Yeah.
listening to podcasts now, they're watching videos. And it's just so cool how you were able to use a platform and actually see the results of that coming through with applications. So good for you. And then also like going on Instagram Live and doing all those things, it seems like it's like easy, but it's not. You really like
So,
you
right.
have to like have it prepared. And especially if
Yeah.
you're like doing it in a professional sort of thing. So good for you for figuring that out. And for folks that might be listening that are maybe part of a program, like these are really good strategies to um I just think that if you're going to lean in on something that has a return. And I feel like those sorts of things right now has a return if you're speaking to that category of folks that you're recruiting for. So thank you for that. That was like a little recruitment tip. Good for you. Totally. And then during your recruitment city year, you moved on from that. So what was your, I've done this and now I'm going to do that. And how did you close out that chapter? I'm always just curious
Yeah.
how people are like, okay, I'm done with that.
My life has been all over the place, but
Yes.
especially my last year in LA, I really felt the urge to move back home in some capacity,
Yeah.
right? I was already within the 5 years of my time in LA, and I was like, you know what? Again, transparently, this place still doesn't feel like home. And
Mm.
so for me, I'm like, where do I see myself in the next 5 years, right? Is it here or is it closer to home? And so I actually found myself going and visiting home every other month. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
was racking in all the plane tickets and whatnot too. And so for me, I'm like, okay, why not stay stationed like in the East Coast, visit the LA and the West Coast as much as you can. But I definitely had my heart was longing to come closer to home and be closer to my family. And so I think the hardest part of that was like, oh, do I need to close that chapter in my life with City Year, right? And I had the greatest managers that were really invested in having me stay on board with City Year. They knew
Mm,
building upon retention. They knew I was someone that was a veteran, one, an alumni, but also a veteran recruiter at that point. And they tried their best to make it work so that I could just transfer from one city to another city.
okay.
And so I was able to actually go from our LA site to our New York site for a year. And so that allowed me to have a smoother transition going back closer to home. Now I'm based in Jersey in the New York area and only about 2 hours away from home. And so that's a
Yay.
good round. I didn't need to be right back in Delaware per se, but a good opportunity for me to visit my family at least once a month and then also still do something that I loved day to day too. And then after a year, I actually wasn't looking to move, but I was always big on opening my horizons to whatever opportunities were out there for me, right? And so
Hmm.
I actually got poached about an opportunity to be part of the Go Foundation. And I did my research, right? Similarly with Go Foundation, it's a smaller scale of AmeriCorps program. They began in 2011 versus City Year that was started back in the 80s.
Yes.
With the Go Foundation, I knew that it was more of like a startup opportunity for me, but it allowed me to come back to my roots of the East Coast, right? And there's something that meant a lot to me to come back to the community that helped raise me as well,
Mm,
too, right? I'm from the Northeast and definitely grew up around the area as well, too. And so giving back to that community also was something what also felt full circle for me too. And back in December of 2023, I took that leap of faith and came on board to the Go Foundation. And for me, it was like my calling to continue elevating the AmeriCorps experience, no matter what it was, right? And so from one AmeriCorps program to another AmeriCorps program, the mission that I have in my heart still affiliates with the same mission that I have both from City Year to the Go Foundation as well too. So have been part of Go Foundation for the past 6 months. So it's still fairly new, right? But overall with AmeriCorps for the past 5 coming on 6 years too.
yeah. That's so cool. And when you're recruiting for AmeriCorps positions, what the AmeriCorps member does might be a little bit different, but it's so easy to speak to the experience of just do it, take a chance, do a service year. Before we move on to the Go Foundation and what they do and the opportunities that are available, you're wearing a cool jacket and it looks like a bunch of people signed it. So before we close out your City Year experience, tell us a little bit about this jacket that you're wearing.
And so this is the our bomber jacket. So every year, this is part of City Year's outfit and something that is presented to you as an identity, right? Something that you could be proud to wear as part of City Year and really be proud to be an AmeriCorps member, right? And for me, I was like, this is something that holds very near and dear to my heart, right? And the last day of my service year with City Year, I had all of my students sign it, right? And so I was able to, and these are high schoolers, right? So I'm very thankful that they put their heart into it because some of them are signed, but as you see, like a lot of them are also
Like said stuff.
yeah, are also like paragraphs and also on the back as well too. So there's just a lot of different things that I definitely wanted to make sure I wore this today because again, if I'm not wearing it, it's on the back of my chair no matter what. And they are accountable for me, I'm accountable for them and it just reminds me of my reason why, really having my back,
That's
literally.
cool. Yeah, that's so cool. And I think with those kinds of things, when we take those with us through our service year, we
Yeah.
want to create those things for the members in the future. And I remember we always had this thing at the end of our service year where we create like little notebooks or whatever. And one year I created this thing and it's got an AmeriCorps top
Yeah.
and we had all these different gems inside and you could choose, oh wait, which gem meant a specific attribute about a person. And so every member would go around and place a rock in your little cup. And at the end of the year, you could reflect on it to see like how people thought of you based off of their experience. And so I love that because those are little, like I've carried this around from the last like 6 offices that I've been in. Now my office is my home, so it's in my home. So I hear what you're saying with that City Year jacket because this is sitting right next to my computer right now. And that's so sweet. That's so cool. And it's cool, especially what you said. These are all kids that are young adults now that are either finishing college or going into college, and just so amazing. You have had quite a journey. It sounds like from college, finding your foothold, and then doing a service year, going back to City Year. And then I think also something that I just want to shout out and recognize is that your intuition and your heart sync with, I love this, but I really need this. And it's important for us to remember that if we have a pull to a family or a location or something, like we can all get caught up in the career and I'm over here and I'm doing this. And sometimes we just need to take a step back and say, but what does my soul need? And it sounded like your soul really needed that little warm hug that being back on the East Coast, being only 2 hours away from your family allowed you to do and to prosper. And so now you're with the Go Foundation, which is an AmeriCorps program, not as big as City Year. But tell us about the opportunities that are available and what AmeriCorps members would be doing if they took this opportunity.
Yeah, so the Go Foundation is very similar to City Year actually. And so within the foundation, our mission is to improve education outcomes. And we really focus on education equity and providing that college access for our students as well too. Within the fellowship that we provide, we tap into national service, of course, and we offer a transformative opportunity for those that are interested to mentor and tutor students, especially in underserved communities. Within our program, we're solely based in the Northeast. And so, again, on a smaller scale of things, we are progressively hoping to continue to elevate the program and expand. But for now, we are in 5 different sites. I'm based in Jersey, so we have our Newark, New Jersey site. We're also in New York, Boston, Connecticut, and Washington, D.C. as well.
Wow. So you have members in all those different sites?
Yep, exactly.
Very cool.
And so right now, I believe we only have around over 100, 200 fellows right now, right? And again, that's huge, right? That's still huge.
That's a lot.
Exactly. And we're trying to expand to over 260 this year. I think we're super close in reaching that goal as well too. And I'm really proud of the team that we built and being part of that team and seeing that progression throughout my time here, even though it's only been 6 months. It's been fun to see that, especially even though Go Foundation is on a smaller scale. I always share that the impact is huge as well too, right? Recognizing that I can continue elevating an AmeriCorps program day to day is something I really wanted to continue to do. And because we are smaller, it's nice to have an arm's reach in connecting with our president and the exec board and having the opportunity to know and recognize that the things that I have, the input that I share is really valuable to the changes that can happen through our program as well too. Even though we are still continuously growing, we are looking for our fellows who are passionate and mission driven along with open-minded for our cause. And so we call them fellows, right? So our Go Fellows live, work, and serve in the communities they join. And it allows them to change young lives while also working with their own personal and professional growth as well.
Nice.
Too.
Nice.
Yep.
That's always something that I want to always highlight is my AmeriCorps year was the best professional development that I've ever experienced in my entire life. And so your fellows work, where do they work serve predominantly in high schools? Is that?
So we actually work with students from elementary, middle school, and high school. Okay. So depending on where our fellows serve is the specific grade that they work with. So for example, our Jersey sites were solely in middle schools. And so all of our fellows are working with 6th to 8th graders.
God love those fellows.
Yeah. But yeah,
Nothing's wrong with
exactly.
6th to 8th graders. I was a substitute teacher for a little bit. Middle school was not my favorite place. And then
Okay.
how long is the service year and what is the hours look like that they do?
Yeah, this is a full-time AmeriCorps program, and so it is Monday to Friday for about 9 to 10 hours a day. And our fellows do serve throughout the course of the school day in the classroom spaces. We do serve students, especially collaborating with teachers and that admin in the school grounds as well too, and recognizing that we can't do this work alone. And so we really appreciate the collaboration and partnership that we have with the teachers and the school overall environment as too. And primarily the responsibilities of our fellows are working with students in small group tutorial sessions,
Mm.
or students through high dosage tutoring through math and English support. And so a lot of that is really connected in making sure that our students have the basis of math and English and can provide that, which can expand into other subjects that can help them through that as well too. And so we also host an after school program, which is an additional
Wow.
tutorial opportunity for our students, but also to tap into our fellows' passions as well too, right? So if there's any extracurricular activities they're interested in doing, that's something we also enjoy watching our fellows excel in, right? So for example, we have a fellow that's part of a dance team and helping the students
Oh,
in that
cool.
well too. And outside of that, basketball, different things that our fellows are involved in, right? And so we really just want to make sure we are showing up for our students, not just in the classroom spaces, but outside as well.
So you had mentioned that you invest in the professional development of the fellows. What are some
Yeah.
of the specific like trainings and skills that you focus on? And do you bring them all together like in person or is it virtual sort of? What's your
Yeah, so
professional
I
development?
like to say that we try to get all of our fellows together at least quarterly, right?
Nice.
And because we are in the Northeast, it's a little easier for that to happen, right?
Yeah,
And so we allow them to bond with each other, and outside of them being able to bond with their own site, right? Connecting with people, someone that's serving in DC can connect with someone from Jersey and someone from Connecticut, New York, and vice versa, right? And so, yeah, within our space, I always share as much as our fellows are serving our students, we also want to serve them too, right? And
right.
so, professional development is something that is huge with the Go Foundation. Year by year, we also host a job career fair for them, right? Thinking about what life looks like after their service year. We want to best help them in what that looks like. So, we had just finished a job fair for them where we had different teachers, different people from other sectors of work come and meet our fellows so that they are more familiar with what their next steps could look like as
Yeah.
well too. And outside of that, we also provide our Segal Education Award, which is one of my favorite, actually the favorite benefit that I also used as a alumni as well too, right? With the Segal Education Award, they're able to utilize that to pay off student loans or even go back to school, right? And so especially nowadays, we see those that are super interested in going back into getting their grad degree and moving forward in their education journey. And within the Go Foundation, we want to elevate that experience for them by not just receiving that scholarship, but especially being part of AmeriCorps. There's hundreds of universities that partner with us in supporting our alumni as well.
Yeah. So for folks that don't know, there's what is it called? Schools for National Service. And you can actually go just Google AmeriCorps Schools for National Service, and you'll get into a database and you'll see all of the schools across the country that give some type of incentive for AmeriCorps members to do their graduate programs or undergraduate programs. And that is really something that like when I was at the Maryland Service Commission, that was something that I was really pushing forward. When I started in that position, we had 3 schools of national service. And when I left, I think we had 13. So it's like, it's huge. And you can sometimes colleges of education or schools of whatever your master's or your graduate program is, they might even match your Segal Education Award. And I think right now it's about $7,000 and something dollars. It doesn't pay for the whole program, but it really can get you through a semester or something like that. It sounds like an opportunity with the Go Foundation would be just fantastic for anyone who's looking. Is there an age range that you're looking for with your program?
Yeah, within the fellowship, you just have to be 18 and up, have a U.S. citizen or permanent, or be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. We do ask that you have at least your high school diploma or GED. Our preference is those that potentially have a graduate college degree as well too, but we are open to those, especially if you do have prior experience working with kids as well. And then also wanted to highlight probably our biggest benefit as the Go Foundation, and something that differentiates us from other AmeriCorps programs is we actually provide housing for our fellows.
Ooh,
When
that
I
is a
think
game
me,
changer.
if I had known that, that might have changed some things for me. But for me, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we might be based in the Northeast, but we do get a lot of candidates that are always willing to relocate because of the housing incentive that we provide. And so,
And I'm just curious, how do you find housing for folks? And maybe we can't go down that rabbit hole right now, but
so I'm amazed at the opportunity that we have to provide housing for our fellows. It looks a little different for each of our sites just because some of our housing is affiliated with the school itself. And that doesn't take away from our own like funding as a foundation and AmeriCorps program. And then we also have smaller sites that we provide housing for under our funds in some capacity. But because again, we are a smaller scale AmeriCorps program, we're able to fit that in our funding. And so we have a great, strong team of our exec committee that really finds those ways to really provide that for our AmeriCorps program and
that's so cool.
our fellows.
I think it's funny that you keep saying you're a small scale AmeriCorps program when you have 200 members. I was the executive director for 2 service commissions, and I think in both commissions we had one program that had maybe 2 that had 200 members. The rest of them had 20 to 30. That was about it. So yeah, you're not a small AmeriCorps program, but it sounds like a wonderful opportunity for folks. So before my final question is going to be like, how do people apply for this and what should people do? But is there anything else that you want to highlight about the Go Foundation AmeriCorps opportunity?
Yeah, so within our program, it is open to any career path, right? You don't have to go into education or nonprofit to be part of our program, right? We've had a lot of alumni that go into different sectors of work. A lot of people utilize this as a gap year, right? So we have fellows that are on the pre-law or pre-med track. We have those that go into the corporate sector as well too, and working for big high-end companies as well too. But especially those that are interested in the teaching or education route. This allows you to gain direct experience in the role. But other than that, there's a lot of transferable skills that you could utilize and to go into any trajectory as well too. We also have a teacher residency program that allows our fellows to do a year service and then get their master's or certification with. So yeah, definitely share that it's small, but it's definitely mighty and doesn't take away from the overall experience of the Go Foundation. And I'm really proud to see this continue to elevate and progress throughout the years to come as well.
That's awesome. You've been an extremely awesome ambassador for both City Year and the Go Foundation and AmeriCorps. So I thank you so much for taking a chance and filling out the form and getting on the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. I know I had a really good response to the first 15 people, and this series has been really great. And again, another opportunity where I'm like, I'm in the the DC metro area. Maybe I could serve as a Go Foundation member. It's so awesome. So how, if people are interested, what is the best way for folks to get started on an application or find out more?
Yeah, so our website is called gofellows.org, very straight to the point. I'd be
Yeah,
happy to send you those links and resources as well through an
sure.
email or wherever you can add the links as well too. But it is a 5 to 10 minute application. Our application process is super easy because the reason why is we want to connect with you as soon as possible. And maybe a little different from other AmeriCorps application processes, but ours are actually 2 interviews, one over the phone and one through virtual platform. And so it allows us to not just get to know the person through an application, but get to know them straight to the point from a phone call.
Yep.
And then from there, continue forward with the interview process. And so we understand the stress of interview process and whatnot too. And so we alleviate that stress and make sure that the process is only about 3 to 4 weeks long until you get a decision from us and help you through next steps like onboarding and what to look for as well too. And we are going through rolling admission right now, and we
Okay.
do think that the Go Foundation is a good fit for you. I'd be happy to send you my email as well. Would love to stay connected. If you were able to find us through this podcast, of course, we'll love to advocate and continue the collaboration and partnership we have too.
Yeah, that's great. So it's a rolling administration or rolling application. And what is the time frame that the service year would start?
Yes, it is a full-time position, right? A full year term. And so our full year position begins in July 29th.
Okay,
So 2024 until the following June. So June
perfect.
2025. Yeah.
Awesome. This sounds wonderful. And so this is great. Everything that you shared, like I said, you've been such a great ambassador for City Year, for AmeriCorps, for the Go Foundation. This has been a great conversation. Is there any last words or anything else that you're like, oh, I forgot to say this that we want to say before we close out?
Yeah, I think though, like for me, I'm big on like inspirational like quotes and whatnot too. And so I actually painted this. I don't know if it's gonna show up. Oh, here you go.
Oh,
I
yeah.
painted this during my service year. I think it's flipped right now, but I'll tell you guys what it says.
Okay.
So when your reason to serve is love, you'll never find a reason to stop. And so
Oh,
it has carried, like this quote has carried me through and through my time, almost my 6 years in AmeriCorps, and it has changed the trajectory of my life and allowed me to be where I'm at today. And so I hope those that are listening to this and watching this today could really be inspired to take in what you love and continue forward, because that will be your reason to not stop.
that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for just your light and your inspiration. And there's not a better way to close out this podcast other than get into service, because you're not going to stop. I've been doing it for the last 12 years. You got
Yep.
your foot in it too. So thank you all for everyone who has listened all the way through this podcast. And yeah, we'll have another episode coming up soon. But if you found this compelling, please share it or take action and apply for a position. So thank you so much for listening to the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. And we're